Hi, ghost hunting fans! If you enjoyed Family Spirits, the adventures and evidence of Gallo family ghost hunters, you're going to love Family Spirits 2, Purpose and the Paranormal by Bobby J. Gallo. Paperback and Nookbook available through Barnes & Noble. More adventure, more evidence, more ghosts. Materialize your copy today.
Hey folks, welcome to Creepy Conversations from the Castle. I'm Bobby J. Gallo from Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. You guys know me, I hope. And I'm thrilled to share that we are coming to you live from the iconic Castello Gallo. This remarkable haunted castle constructed in 1928 holds countless mysterious tales right here in Roseto, Pennsylvania, and provides the perfect backdrop for our deep discussions with the most fascinating paranormal personalities. Now, today, we are actually simulcasting on all three major streaming platforms: YouTube, where we have close to 30,000 eager viewers, Twitter X with a growing community of over 7,200, and Facebook boasting more than 5,000 followers. So if you haven't yet joined our paranormal family, now is the perfect time. Hit the like and subscribe button. And as Courtney would always say, tell your friends. Okay. We also want to tell you right now that we would like you to interact, jump in the chat, ask your questions, and interact with us, and be a part of this unforgettable conversation that we're going to have today. And finally, be sure to watch this till the very end, because you don't want to miss a minute of this. You really don't. And that brings us to our unbelievable guest today. This gentleman was born in Kansas. He was raised in Southern California, and his name is D.H. Parsons. And he's this gentleman has all types of interests, and he's very, very fascinating. We met, I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago, but we've been friends for a while on social media. He read my books. He enjoyed it. And now this is his podcast debut. I asked him to come on to the show, and he agreed. And I want him to share some of his interests and some of the fascinating ways that he views the paranormal. And most importantly, I want to talk about his books. He's actually the founder of the D.H. Parsons Institute, which is dedicated to the exploration and expression of truth through examination of history, culture, and the arts. I mean, really fascinating. I love his posts on social media. He always has something interesting to share, and really varied. But he does have a background in the paranormal, and we're going to talk about that too. So without further ado, I'm going to bring this gentleman on right now. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, D.H. Parsons.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Bobby?
I'm doing great. And I have to tell you, I am so excited to have you on the show. This is your very first podcast. I know you told me that you don't normally do these. I am a big admirer and fan of yours for a lot of reasons. And it's not just because you liked my books. It's but you have a varied background, and you have a lot of different, and that's where I think we connected. We connected immediately. I could sense that we had similar energies. And one of the things I really liked was the fact that you have a lot of varied interests, just like I do. I always consider myself a modern day Renaissance man because of all the different things that I like to do. And I see you as the exact same type of person. And I think that's one of the reasons we clicked, but we also have similar views on the paranormal. And, I want to talk a little bit about that. But
we also look a lot alike.
So we do. You know what? I think we were separated at birth.
Yeah, I think so. Different mothers together.
Yeah. Hey, one never knows in this business for sure.
Well, you don't.
Who knows? We might have been brothers in a past life. Who knows? You don't know. You are an accomplished author. Okay.
Yes.
And you wrote, what was the title of your first book? The Diary? Hold that. Yeah, right there.
It's called The Diary of Mary Bliss-Parsons, and there are 3 of them.
Right.
In the series.
Right. Now, I read the first one.
Okay.
And I was kind of blown away. And I told you while we were in the green room that I had one question for you, and then we were going to let the conversation kind of flow after that. And here's the question.
Oh, no.
How much of that book is true?
I would say 80% would be true, and about 20% is a spin-off.
Okay.
Allegory and fantasy. I want to say right up front, these books, a lot of people think it's about witchcraft and witches. And
No.
This is about it starts off being about my grandmother, Mary Parsons Bliss, Mary Bliss-Parsons, I'm sorry,
Sure.
who was tried for witchcraft during the Salem witch trials. In fact, she was probably the very first one. It came before the actual trials themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And they strung her out 3 different times. She was tried 3 times, acquitted 3 times. But the main reason she was acquitted was her father, or her husband, Thomas Parsons, was the richest man in town. And he actually bought her freedom. You know, money meant everything back then. So that's why she was out loose and running around. She never denied being a witch. But in fact, later on in her life, she had to exile herself out of town across a little river or stream there in Northampton, Massachusetts.
Right.
Because the townspeople wouldn't come near her. They believed she was a witch. And there have been a lot of books written about her. But a lot of the books they're pretty close to being truth, but they're pretty close to being off too. But what I was going to originally say was I've been compared to L. Frank Baum. Have you heard of him? The Wizard of Oz. He wrote The Wizard of Oz.
Sure.
The Ring trilogy with Tolkien. You've heard of him. Who's the other one they compare? Oh, C.S. Lewis, the Narnia Chronicles.
Well, I know C.S. Lewis very well. Yes.
Yeah. They've compared my writing to that because of it's based in fact and reality, but it's allegorical.
Sure.
But also, there's a lot of fantasy that comes in, and you can't tell the fantasy sometimes from the real. And I think that's what really makes them fun to read, because they are fun.
It's a great read. It's really a page turner, and you don't know where reality lets off and fiction picks up, if it does at all. Now, this is a paranormal safe space because, as you know, I'm not a believer, I'm a knower. I know what exists.
Yep.
And that's the whole purpose of this podcast and of my web series and of my books. You know, I passed the point of belief a long time ago when it comes to, you know, the supernatural and the afterlife and things of that nature. So we could just put it out there. Now you literally channeling was it your 5 times great grandmother?
9 times.
9 times.
9 generations. But I am in a direct lineage through the fathers with this,
okay,
which makes me really related to her.
So you are 9 times. Yeah. Okay. Got you on that.
Yeah.
So it's a direct lineage. It's not like this.
No, it's not all over the place. And
right. So you're channeling your 9 times great grandmother, and the conversations you had with her that you pose through this book are mind blowing. Because when you really start to think, because and this is what really got me believing all of this was genuine, because I could see somebody picking up the book and say, oh man, this can't be real. But the way my thought process works is, how could this guy make some of this stuff up if this was fiction? You almost can't. So I was really blown away by the books. I think it's phenomenal. And I don't want to call them paranormal per se, but it does border on the paranormal realm, because it's supernatural, and supernatural and paranormal are really two words for the same thing, to be honest.
Right.
But paranormal conjures up all these things about ghost hunting and things of that nature. But when I say paranormal, I'm just mean supernatural.
Right.
So I think that is absolutely fascinating. And, you know, all the things about the wheat, which is not quite a witch, but
wheat is an old English word, W-E-E-T.
Right.
And it was used during that time.
Sure.
Back in the late 1600s. instead of a witch. But it really didn't mean witch. It meant more of the wise woman who knew how to do the herbs, the cliches, all that stuff.
Right.
She could heal people and all of that. But at the same time, most of the people believed she was a witch.
Right.
And that got started because one of the women in town was jealous of her. Apparently, she was very beautiful. And I'd have a portrait of her here that I actually, I don't know if you can even see that here. Can you see that? Is it coming up there?
Oh, yeah. Very clear.
I've seen other people try to pass off portraits of her, but this is the one I think that is going to be the closest to her of all. But she was very pretty, and the women in town were very jealous. They thought she flirted with her husbands and all of that, so they spread the rumor she was a witch, which was not true. And even her husband knew that it wasn't true. But eventually, she got acquitted from all of this stuff. Sir Thomas, her husband, died and left her alone. And that's when she made the little cottage on the other side of the river. Or actually, they made it together, and that's when she moved into that. So the cottage is actually mentioned in this book. Where that's the part where she appears to me, and I see the cottage with a stand of 13 trees.
Yep, I remember that.
That's the cottage that was there, and I got a visual of that, of an imagery of that in my mind just perfectly. And that a lot of this stuff too carries on through the books and even into other books. When you get into like the Book of Den, people are going to say that's a weird book. It's very thin. It's very cheap. All of these books are cheap. They're all on Kindle.
Din is your nickname that she gave you.
Din is actually the name my mother gave me.
Oh, okay.
And nobody ever knew that. It was D-I-N, and only she pronounces it Dean for some reason. But it's a name that my mother gave me, and she knew that, and when she appeared to me. And later on, when Annie's, you're familiar with Annie from the book, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. She, of course, knows everything. She knew who that was. But this Book of Dean also deals with primarily nature and Mother Nature. But Mary appears in this as well. Then I've got another one coming out. There's going to be 3 books in this series: Book of Den, Book of Mother, which is Mother Nature, and then Book of Annie, and that's the one that's going to blow everybody's mind. That's way off the charts, but that's coming out as well. But getting back to what you were talking about.
No, I basically just want to, and I just want to now do a quick recap for those that might just be tuning in or coming on or watching, or have watched up to this point and are still a little fuzzy about what we're talking about. There was a point in your life where all of a sudden your 9 times great-grandmother appeared to you or started communicating with you. You were channeling her, so to speak.
Right.
Okay. And from that, she lived in the time of the Salem witch trials.
Correct.
And you couldn't believe this at first. And as time went on, you came to accept it. And she started revealing truths to you.
Right.
And then you took pen to paper because you were writing this down the entire time this was happening.
Right. She directed me to write it down and keep a journal of it.
Right. And that turned into your first book.
Correct.
Okay. So everybody watching this right now, that's pretty much the prequel to what we're talking about.
Right.
So I just want everybody to have a clear understanding of this conversation because it's amazing, honestly.
Yeah, let me explain too how she first appeared to me.
Sure.
Because that was kind of off the charts as well. And I'm a level-headed guy. I was never like this before.
Right.
But
clearly by reading your book. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was sitting on my couch one day, and all of a sudden I looked out the window, and this bang, it was a huge explosion. And this round ball of bright light blew up out in my front yard practically.
Like ball lightning, you said in the book.
Yeah, it's called ball lightning. I did research on that. It's a real thing.
It is.
And it was recorded. People heard this and stuff, but it was right in front of the house. And I felt the lightning and the energy go through my body because I was sitting right by the window. No kidding. I was struck by lightning once before, but that didn't kill me. But this went right through my body and I could feel it. Well, that night I went to bed, and that's when I kept hearing this voice. And the first time she actually mentioned me or talked to me, she said, "I would speak with you." I was laying in bed. And she said, "I would speak with you." And I thought, what? That's just my head going off. She said it again. She said it 2 times. And then I knew something was up. So I got up.
The verbiage, I would speak to you, not the way that somebody would say that in this day and age.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
I would speak with you.
That's the way somebody would say it back then.
Yeah, that's right.
I love this. See, I pick up on these little things. Go ahead.
So, but I thought it was, I didn't know what it was. I got out of bed. I thought somebody was in the house. I didn't have a gun or anything.
Right.
I picked up a shoe, and I was going to hit somebody with a shoe. I don't know. I went into the kitchen, and I thought my poodle at the time, Natalie, who's mentioned in the book, I thought she was doing something, but I realized, well, it's probably just one of the dishes in the dish drainer in there moving around.
Right.
Sure, saying words like that. But I got into bed and she said it again, and that freaked me out. But then I went to sleep. I got up the next morning early, went out into my backyard under my linden tree, which is a sacred tree to the Druids, incidentally, back in England. And I laid back there and I was just reading, and all of a sudden she started to show me pictures in my head, visions. And it's like a ticker tape. You know what a ticker tape is that goes across? Or an old film from a 8mm film that goes, this type of thing. That's what it looked like going by the front of my head. And it was really good pictures. I mean, they were perfect, of this woman and this river, this little stream, and where she was standing. She was wearing a blue dress on the other side. And it just went on, and I couldn't talk to her then because I didn't know who it was. Right. But that's the start of how the book gets going. And from that point, it goes off into realms that are pretty bizarre, like nothing you've ever read before. I literally have been told by many people, and I believe this myself, nobody's ever read anything like these books. Well, these are not like your ordinary books.
Put me in that category, because it is amazing. It is amazing. There's no question about it. Now, I have a follow-up question to my first question.
Oh. Okay.
I didn't think I was going to have a second question on this, but I do. Do you still communicate with her?
Yes, I do.
You do.
And with Annie.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's on a regular basis, and it's going beyond mere belief. It's been proven several times that this is actually going on between them by credible.
Oh, I believe it.
That have been present when it has happened. In fact, now people want to hire me as a psychic because they think I have these incredible psychic abilities, but I'm really just getting information fed to me by her and Annie.
Right.
It's 100%. They come in here and they go, "What? How did you know that?" And it's just 100% all the way. Not 10%, but 100% all the time. And I'm not bragging. I wouldn't do that.
No. It's not about bragging. It's about what's happening. I mean, if it's happening, it's happening. Did she encourage you to go on the podcast? Just curious.
Yes, she did. In fact, she likes you.
Really?
She likes you very much. In fact, earlier when we talked, I talked to you about your family and how you relate, and how much I really like that on your show, how real and loving you guys are, and you mesh as a unit and everything. I mean, you're the best show on TV. Let's face it.
Thank you.
But I got a lot of that from her. She was telling me she is apparently watching you as well. So she can do anything. She can be anywhere. And of course,
and I think that's indicative of spirits in general.
Right.
But tell her I appreciate it.
And she can hear you right now. I think she was going to watch this. I don't think she'd be not here.
I think I'm speechless, as you can see, and that's hard for me. It's very, very rare that I'm speechless. And it only goes to show how much I believe all of this is true. Not that I would ever doubt you, but I could see some people being skeptical.
Well,
So
I
yeah.
wouldn't advise you doubt me. She wouldn't like that.
What's that?
I said I wouldn't advise you doubting me. She wouldn't like that.
I don't. I don't. I really don't. Hi Montana.
That's one of my cousins, I believe. Hi, Montana.
There we go. Okay.
You didn't
Wonderful.
think you'd get people saying hello to you, did you? Hi.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Once I saw the last name, I said, "Oh, this is one of DH's fans."
Well, you see, once your family comes on here, that's a bad sign. If your family's the only people coming on.
No. I'm watching the monitor have people coming in and out, but like I said, there's going to be thousands that are going to see this ultimately for sure, because every single one of my episodes is numbered into thousands of views, and that's going to go up. Once the subscriber count keeps going up, and then they go to the old episodes to watch them. So it's definitely going to get a lot of play. But yes, tell Mary that I do not doubt you, and I'm very impressed with everything that you've done. But yeah, I think it's great, and I'm flattered that she likes me and my family. That's a huge compliment. Especially coming from someone like her. And everything that she said in the books, very profound insights and wisdom that I think everybody could get something out of. So folks, even if you're not just looking for a paranormal thriller, this is a book you want to buy just to hear what Mary has to say. And that to me is the real value in the book, because when she says something, you end up doing this.
Yeah.
Your head goes up and down, and you say to yourself, wow. And that's why, because there's a lot of ghost hunting books, mine's one among many, but there's not a lot of books like yours. Yours is really different. And I think anybody who is, whether you're into the paranormal, NDE, or you take the more parapsychology, road, to the supernatural, I think everybody should read these books, because I think there are some truths in there that I don't think are spoken enough about. And I think the whole Strong Wheat Society is fascinating. The whole concept is great. I do believe that, and you said this in your book, that once you put this all out there, you're going to connect with people that are going to help you get the word out, so to speak.
Well, I hope so, because that's the whole point, I think, that she was making with the book. The world is a mess. Right?
It is.
Everybody knows that. I don't care what you're Republican or Democrat or independent or anything. It's
agree.
A total, absolute mess. And there is no solution for that, given all the regular solutions.
I agree.
It just is not going to happen. And what Mary does prophetically, that book was first printed in 2011. Long before all this stuff was going on in the woke society and all that. She prophetically, as you read, mentions things that are going to happen.
Yep.
And lo and behold, exactly, they are happening. And she talks about in there, she gives us reasons for why it's happening. She gives us reasons for how we can correct it, and what needs to be done. And I mentioned those in the book, the 7 Hermetic principles.
Yes,
that are extremely important. If you buy the book for nothing else, buy them for that, because those principles are extremely valuable. It tells you how the universe works, and it tells you how, if you want to be in balance with the universe, which is what everybody really needs to be, then you can use those principles and become balanced with the universe, and have a happy life, a successful life, and all that stuff. I wish I would do that more often, but I'm too busy to even follow my own words. But then she gets into the prophecies about the end of times, and that are rapidly approaching this world. And I'm not talking about, Bible stuff and Christian stuff, but I'm talking about reality here. The world is approaching its end. The culture is doing that. The society is doing that. It is literally destroying itself. No, but God's not doing anything. society is destroying itself because of all the weird things it's getting into. And
Right.
and the one thing, I don't know if we want to get into real details, but I mentioned the creation frequency in the book, and every world has a creation frequency. This frequency that basically links it to the cosmos and gives life to the earth or to the planet or whatever. And what's happening in our world right now with all the tsunamis and the earthquakes and the volcanoes, that isn't global warming. Global warming can't cause a volcano or an earthquake. But what is happening is that all of the people, all of the thoughts, the negative thoughts of humanity coming together. And, thoughts have been measured. You can actually measure a thought. This is a physiological fact. They have weight. And you measure these thoughts, and you put 7 or 8 billion people's thoughts together, and that's one heck of an energy thing being released. That is what is affecting the creation frequency. And what it's doing is diluting it. It's diluting this frequency that's coming down, giving life to the planet, and the whole planet's falling apart. And you can see that. Everybody can see that, but they think, oh, it's just climate change. Well, baloney. Climate change exists, but it has existed forever on every planet in the universe.
Agreed. Yes.
It's a cyclical thing. It's a cycle. It goes around and it changes every year. But this is different. This is something that is actually destroying the planet. But it isn't global warming. It's people. And people have to learn that they need to control themselves. You got to start controlling yourself. Right. And anyway, she talks about that in here, and it tells what the end result is going to be, not what it might be, what it is going to be, and how you can keep that from happening. And that goes on through all 3 of those books. The second book is called The Lost Revelation. And people are wondering what that is. I'd love to tell you, but it has to do with nature. Mm-hmm. And if you want to read the Bible, there is a revelation in the Bible that you never hear preached about in the church, but it's the one that controls everything in the universe. And I'm not going to give it away, but you're going to have to read this to find it out. But you need to read it. If you learn what that is, you're going to learn how to solve all the problems in the world. And
and actually dovetailing on what you just said about, people causing these issues. People always say, why does God allow this? Or why does God allow that? I said, because he allows it. He created the entire framework. Right. And then he opened the doors and let us do what we will. Exactly. So what happens is really a direct consequence of what we are doing, not what he is allowing or not allowing.
Correct.
So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. And for everybody listening, when DH says she, you are referring to your 9 times great grandmother, her spirit, soul, consciousness. What would you call that?
Her spirit being.
Her spirit being that channels through you to write these books.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna. The only reason that I'm saying this over and over are for people that might just jump in,
right,
and not know what we're speaking about, or to confirm it to people that have watched it from the beginning, because it's so fascinating. And what you're doing, in my opinion, it's different, and it's not different than a really good psychic medium, because they can talk to spirits. However, I think you've taken it to the next level. I really do. Inadvertently, you didn't even have to try, because it's the nature of who you are. You are a strong wheat, WEET, which if you read your books, people are going to understand that certain type of people are more inclined to this type of spirit communication. I think we all have it to some degree or another, but I think some people are more inclined to it given your lineage or your spiritual development or whatever. I mean, look, I don't know a lot about these things. I know a lot about ghosts. That's what I do. I mean, UFOs, cryptozoology, that's all out of my wheelhouse. this is kind of half in my wheelhouse and half out. So I have to ask you the questions because there's a lot of things that I'm learning. That's why I find this so fascinating, because this is something I don't know about.
Well,
you read both my books, so you
yeah.
know what I'm all about.
Yes, I do.
You
And
pretty much know all that I know too, because everything that I know, I put in those books. So when something like this falls into my lap, I'm really fascinated, because now this is a whole new vista for me. This is a whole new way of looking at things. And, you know, I'm a Roman Catholic, you know, and I know you're aware of that, but there are things that you're not going to hear at mass. You're not going to hear during the homily. I mean, those homilies are pre-written.
they're short, very short.
And, they were developed in bite-sized pieces for the masses. But for somebody like me, who really wants to delve deeper into this type of spirituality, there are truths that are yet to be revealed. So when I find something like your writings, I'm fascinated, because I'm like, I soak it up, because I'm like, this is what I'm looking for, you know, things like this. And this is why I think everybody that's in or out of the paranormal should read these books. I really, truly believe that. And here's another important point, and I'll let you expound upon this. A lot of people are going to see these books and say, oh, that's anti-Christian, or oh, that's anti this or anti that. You are not anti-Christian, because when you post on social media, you're posting about nuns and religious artifacts and churches, and I see that all the time from you. So what would you say to the person that would say this borders on heresy, for lack of a better word?
Well, I'd just say that they are basically uneducated, because you have to study to find out what this is. In fact, in the book that's going to be out not too far from now, the Book of Annie, or Annie's book, whatever you want to call it. I haven't really started it yet. But when you read that book, you're going to find out that religion and this kind of stuff go hand in hand. The Bible is filled with paranormal experiences, literally hundreds of them. And I list them in there. I'm working on a book right now called I don't have a title for it. I'm making it up, but it's the Bliss-Parsons Handbook of Supernatural and Paranormal. And it's got everything in it. You name it. There's an article written about it in there. I wrote for that specific thing. And one thing in there I write is Christianity and the paranormal. And I list literally dozens of scriptures and explain how these go perfectly in hand with everything that has to do with the paranormal, supernatural, even ghost hunting. You know, that all comes into it. So it's not something that's a heresy. If you look back in time too, you'll find some of the greatest minds of the church before it became the modern contemporary kind of, I don't know, cliche stereotype church that it is today. Those guys were really brilliant, and many of them delved in the paranormal.
Right. I mean, and I see a crucifix behind you. So
yeah,
there you go.
My brother bought that in Rome.
Right.
Smuggled it back on the airplane to give to me.
Now that article you wrote, I want a link to that. You got to promise me you'll send that to me.
Well, it's going to be in a book form, but I can rip that. Well, it's going to be a while though. My publisher and my editor is backed up. I've got like 20 more books lined up. So I'm not sure where it's going to fit in. But what I will do for you is I will pull that article out and I will send it to you.
That'd be wonderful, and I'll keep it under wraps. I just want to read it.
I think I can do that I think I can send it by email. So I'll try to do that to you I think I have your email address. I'm not sure. But
yeah, there's a wonderful woman, Christina Rake, who I interviewed in my second book. And she's a female archbishop for an offshoot of the Catholic Church where they ordain women. And she wrote a book. She wrote a wonderful book on that very subject, God, afterlife, and the paranormal in the Bible. I can't remember the exact wording. It's a very, very thick book. I read it from cover to cover, and I can't remember the title. Forgive me, Bishop Rake. But it's a wonderful book where she does list all, and she takes a deep dive into the Bible to show that even paranormal investigation is not anti-Christian and is not anti-Bible. It's perfectly acceptable.
I want to point out that every one of these books talks about that. Jesus comes into them, Bibles come in. You know, they build up J.R.R. Tolkien in the Ring trilogy. The Catholic Church worships him practically because he was a Catholic.
Right.
But they also made a lot of money off of him. But they think he's the greatest writer and everything. But look at his book. It's got witches and demons and all this stuff in it. He never once mentions the Bible or Christ or God, for that matter.
Nope.
In every one of my books, I do. I even put scriptures in every one of them, from the wheat books all the way through even the ones I did on the whole series I did on my college life back in the 1960s. It's filled with conversations that I had with a friend of mine who was a priest, and a friend that was a nun, and a friend that was a Baptist minister. One guy was from Ireland, and he was a preacher in Palm Springs. I was a detective, a private detective in Palm Springs at one time. And I started a book series on being that.
That's impressive.
And it's called The Psychic Detective of Palm Springs, or something like that, because I used my psychic abilities back in Palm Springs. So that's one of the series that's going to be coming up as well. I got 5 books written in that, but again, they're backed up in the deal here. But it talks about psychic abilities in everyday life, and it's I've talked to the best of them. People have tried to talk to me and say, "You're not a Christian because you're doing all this stuff," but that's baloney.
I get that too, though.
Yeah,
I get that too.
But the fact of it is, you can be both.
Of course.
Jesus was into that. Jesus is the Son of God, but yet he also was a paranormal being. He was a supernatural being when he came back to earth. You know, he appeared to people immediately after he rose up and he ascended into heaven. Well, he came back and appeared, to Mary Magdalene and all that. So there's all of this stuff is based in that. I even go into Native American philosophy. I lived on a Ponca reservation for quite a while back in Oklahoma when I was younger, and I've learned an awful lot about the Native Americans, and I put a lot of that in here. And actually, the Native American religion is very close, I think, to the original religion. I think it's very close to the Druids in England, because they're very similar in how they look at the earth and the world and all of that. A lot of people also, one more thing, I'm probably talking too much.
No, not at all.
How long is
the guest?
How long is this podcast? Is this an hour or 2 hours?
No, we got, it's 40 minutes. We got about 20 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
I hope, because my webcam has been giving me battery issues.
Oh, wow.
And I'm looking at 3 bars. I think we're okay.
Okay. Well, anyway, I won't go into all the Native American stuff, but they were very much into the types of things that Mary teaches in this book, about how to go back to the original religion. There is a religion. You can be a Christian, and you can go to a Baptist church and still worship on your own in the original form of the religion that was worshipped, which is very simple. And it's outlined in almost every one of my books. I have that outline in it. So if people want to do that.
Well, when the Druids came, when the monks came over to Ireland and started to convert the Druids to Christianity, there ended up being a lot of mergings there.
Yes, there did.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize it, but the Celtic Druids, of all of them, primarily the Irish, believed they took Jesus as the head Druid, and that's how the Celtic Christian church got started. And he's still revered to be the head Druid. I mean,
I love it.
All these things mixed together. The world is a web, and it all comes together.
And I'm just going to mention this one more time, because it's kind of like a hot button for me, but I have a lot of fundamentalist Christian friends, and they're the ones that are always saying that we're cavorting with demons and this, that, and the other thing. And why do you need to do this? And I always tell them, I said, I'm doing this to verify or to get proof of the afterlife, ultimately proof. Right now we're getting evidence. Proof and evidence are two different things.
Yeah.
But they say, well, all you need to do is read the Bible and you should just have faith. And then I always say to them, I said, well, can you tell that to the Apostle Thomas?
Yeah, right.
The Apostle Thomas walked with Jesus, saw his miracles, saw him raise Lazarus from the dead, and yet still did not believe that he rose from the dead until he had proof. So I always say, there's a little St. Thomas in me. What could I tell you? That's what I tell him.
I think there is in everyone. Otherwise, we wouldn't have all the denominations we've got. They're all doubting Thomases. I mean,
Exactly.
Martin Luther, he doubted the Catholics. So what did he do? He started his own thing. Well, now there's like 40,000 different Protestant religions out there.
Yes.
You know, and even the Catholic has had trouble. They've split. There are charismatic Catholics today. There are the Roman Catholics. There are the what do you call them? The trad Catholics, traditional Catholics, and then the I forget all the words in Latin, but the new Catholics. But they go in splits as well. So what you have to do is learn to become balanced. And sometimes I'll quote a book out of the Bhagavad Gita or out of the Tao Te Ching. That's a little unknown fact that a lot of people don't know. I'm also a Kung Fu priest.
Whoa.
I have a black sash and Kung
Sifu.
That's exactly right. But
I was in Kung Fu for a while, but I didn't like my Sifu.
but that you have to get the balance that those books talk about. Jesus talked about that. His whole book was, you know, that almost 80% of his books or the books in the New Testament are about Jesus using nature to explain his way. Do you know that he never called it a church or the Christian church? He called it the way. Guess what the word Tao means in Chinese? The way.
The way. Okay.
You know, and the Bhagavad Gita is the way. These things all they come together. And that's why Mary says you have to learn how to become balanced with the universe. And the more you become balanced, and I'm not saying believe all of this, I'm saying study it and consider it. I've had more people have come back from the other side to tell me that you need to learn two lessons. One, you got to love, quit hating so much. And number two, you need to learn things and take wisdom with you.
Isn't that why we're here?
Well, sure it is. And what do people do when they miss their parents? And if you say you're a Baptist, and I grew up a Southern Baptist when I was younger.
Oh, wow. Did not know that.
Yeah. But what do you do when your parents die or your uncle dies and you miss them so bad? And I know people here on Facebook and they hurt when what do? Sometimes they pick their picture up and they start talking to them, or they'll just talk to them in the air. Like, I sure miss you, Dad, or I miss you, Mom. Well, that's perfectly reasonable to do that, because their spirit, and the Bible teaches, guess what? They're in heaven and they can hear you. So why can't they come and talk to you and tell you they love you? That's what this is all about. We don't go on there to find out the scores for the next Preakness race or something like that, or football game. We come on there when you're doing a psychic reading with somebody, what you're really doing is trying to help them to feel. It's almost like you're curing a disease that they've got. They have a disease called hurting, and a psychic person, or I sometimes just use the word intuitive because that's acceptable. It means the same thing.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Absolutely.
Sure. But when a person comes in and you use your intuitive abilities to communicate and to draw a chain between them and a loved one, you're helping to heal them, and they leave healed. Most of them. Some of them don't, but some of them are bitter when they come in. So you got to get, that's a whole nother story. But most of them do heal. But we're not calling down demons. I don't even know any demons. I've been doing this for years. I don't know a demon. I've never met one. but I think demons exist. Yes.
And I think of all the investigations of ghost hunting we've ever done, I think we've only run into one. But I think demons, for lack of a better description, have more important things to do in their realm than posing as Aunt Agatha coming back to tell you that she loves you.
Exactly.
I think if there are demonic entities, they are behind people in the government in
Yeah.
important places influencing society.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's where I think demons reside. I don't think they reside on the other side of a Ouija board.
I
But
agree.
but yeah, and I just want to take this moment really quick to recognize Montana and EB, who are posting some really great comments, and I've been flashing them across the screen for everybody to read. And I just want to tell them thank you. I love when people interact, and that you are not going unnoticed. That
Yeah, I agree with everything they say there.
Yep. And when you rewatch this, you'll see it all on the bottom of the screen. I've been posting it for everybody to see, because they're great comments. And like I said, I love that when people are interacting, because that makes this when we do it live, that's what makes it worthwhile, honestly. But you know what? We got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And this is flying by. This hour is just blowing by, and you are one of the most fascinating people I've ever met. But really quick, would you consider yourself like a cultural anthropologist?
Well, I think, yeah, to a certain degree, I would.
That's how I look at you.
Well, thank you. That's I'll put that on my card, my business card, instead of psychic wanderer. No, I don't have any business card.
Well, you put a slash and cultural anthropologist. But that's the way I look at you, because you're so well versed in different cultures and spirituality that I see that. That's what I thought you were. I thought the Bliss-Parsons Institute was a cultural anthropology institute. That's what I thought it was.
Well, we do that. We do that as well. We do many things on there. I've been called a lot of things. Some I can't, even put on air here.
Join the club.
I've even had visionaries, and this is a funny thing, because you put on that sign, that advertisement sign we put up there, that I was a visionary.
Yes,
and
I did.
I've had a couple of people, including a Catholic priest, tell me I was a Catholic visionary.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I have actually contacted in a weird way a couple of saints.
Oh, wow.
We probably don't want to go into that right here, but that's a different story.
It would be another show, basically. But the Catholic Church is very steeped in mysticism, which I love.
I do too.
And believe it or not, the Catholic Church, was talking about my fundamentalist Christian friends not liking what we do, but that's not so much with the Catholic Church. They kind of accept it.
Yes.
And believe it or not, EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, originated by two priests in the Catholic Church. A lot of people don't even. Yeah,
Nostradamus, one of the greatest psychic seers of all time. He was a priest. He did those quatrains or whatever he did. A lot of them weren't right. Most of them weren't right. The prophecies he made, but some of them were. He got some of them right. But I actually did a story once. I went to a Catholic church not too far from where I live here, and with the next door neighbor here, lady, her name is Elise, and we did a story. We both had near-death experience. I died when I was 9 years old. I had double pneumonia in Oklahoma, and I died. And I had a very bizarre experience with at least one or two angels. And one of them, I believe, was Saint Margaret of Scotland. And that's a very long story, but I mentioned those in the books as well. That might make another story, another hour for you. So
yeah, it might
do that because. But the point is, the place was packed. It was a Catholic church, and it was packed. And
I believe it.
And Elise did hers. She died too. She committed suicide, and yet she came back to life. And she was brought back to life by God, I think. But as we both were. But the place was packed, and it was extremely well received. We even gave a little healing session at the very end. And this was a conservative Catholic church. This wasn't a charismatic group. So that was one of the better things that I've done, I think.
That's wonderful.
But they've called me a visionary, and I don't know what that exactly means, but that's what it was.
well, it means a lot of things. EB, you said you had a question for D.H. Parsons. Just type that in. We have about 10 minutes, and we'll see if he can answer that for you.
I don't know if she's still on or not.
She's on. She said she had a question.
Okay.
So type that in.
Type it in quick, EB. I hope she can spell her own name.
I love.
It took me a long time to spell my name, DH. And everybody thought I was a writer named DH Lawrence, but I'm DH Parsons. But we both write. He only wrote one good book. I've written several. So.
Yeah, and you know what? While she's typing in that question, there we go. I know your answer based on the books and our shared mindset, but speak to this. What is the most important thought shift that a person can make to change the course of destruction of collective man? Ooh.
Oh, man.
That's a deep one.
It is. That would the most important thought shift, a new mindset that we can do. Well, we have to get away from the shallowness of society. That is the main thing. I mean, we worship sports people. We worship music people that aren't worth a plug nickel. You know, they're idiots. They're up there making billions of dollars. These phenomena of musicians running around that are just crazy. I think that's the main thing. We've got to stop being simple and go back to the basic thought of what religion and worship are. And if you're a Christian, go back to the simplicity that was Christ. The Apostle Paul talks about that in the book of Corinthians. One verse in there says, I am so worried that these people are going to get away from the simplicity that is Christ, that they're going to lose it all. Basically, that's what he said. The simplicity. What do we have today? We've got these massive $1 million church buildings. Everybody gets dressed up in suits and ties. They've got all these rituals and costumes and hats they wear and all that. It isn't simple anymore. It's full of dogma and doctrine, and that we've got to get rid of that. And there is a simple doctrine and dogma that Mary gave in that, and she gave it in the book of Den too. In the very back of this, you can read it. But it's 5 things you can do if you want to be a real original worshiper. If you're a Christian, I don't care if you're a Baptist or a Protestant or of any type, or a Catholic or a Buddhist. And I've got friends, literally good friends, not just Facebook friends, but good friends that are priests and nuns, people that are Hindu priests. I've got Gung Fu priests. I've got people all over the world that I know that have read this book, and it has literally changed their life, literally, because the answers to everything, including how the world was created, are in this book. So, and I'm not making a lot of money on these things, and I don't expect to even from this podcast. I want this word to get out. This is Mary's word and prophecy of this earth. And to answer EB's question there, get back to the source. That is God. God is the source. You got to get rid of making people gods. Presidents are gods. You know, you got to get away from that. You got to people that even your family, you can get so tied up in your family, you forget about God, which is good if you got a good family, but a lot of people don't. But I think that's it. Go from the complexity of the society and the culture and the religion and get back to simplicity that is true worship.
You know, DH, I'm telling you, you said you've never done a podcast before. You're killing it, pal. I said you're doing great. Yeah, I mean, you said you've never done a podcast before. You're killing it. You're killing it here.
Well, that's good to hear.
It is. You're a phenomenal guest. My gosh. As far as surpassing my expectations. And that being said, if you could go through your book collection and then tell people where they could find them.
Okay, well, all of the books are on Amazon under D.H. Parsons. There's the first 3 in the series. Well, the first one is Mary Bliss-Parsons, The Strong Wheat Society. Second one is The Lost Revelation. Third one is Beyond Infinite Healing. And then the Book of Den. Buy this book. I think it's like $4 on Kindle. I even did a yoga book, for crying out loud. And you'll find philosophy, not Hindu, you'll find a lot of Christian philosophy in here. And it's got postures. This has been deemed the simplest yoga routine on earth. And people love this book. Then I've got the series I did of my growing up as an art student in Los Angeles, near Los Angeles, California. And I went all over California as an art student. And this was directly off the pages of my journal. And that's a 5-part series called Life Ain't Nothing But a Slow Jazz Dance. Not exactly what I was expecting.
Story of my life.
But I have interactions with people and teachers, and it's not a coming of age thing. It's really adult. But there's some risque things in there.
That's okay.
Some of you guys that like that naked girl stuff. But this is called San Francisco, 1967, My Romance with the Summer of Love. I actually went to San Francisco during 1967 when the Summer of Love was on, when all the hippies came. And all, like Jefferson Airplane, who I know, incidentally, and all of these famous people and came up there and played music. And Allen Ginsberg, the famous beatnik, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Gregory Corso, Jack Kerouac. I met them up there. I did some yoga with Allen Ginsberg. Some of you guys will know these names. These are famous big-time beatnik peoples. That's all in this book. I stayed in a hippie house for a couple of nights. I stayed in a couple of parks with a girl that you're going to think is absolutely crazy. But I went to a Buddhist gathering that was a really experience. You ought to go to this, but you ought to read this book. It's a lot of fun. This is the most fun book I think I've ever read. Shades of the Past, Shadows of the Future. That's the fall of 1967. And this one's called The Muse. It's called Finding My Muse. This is a different cover, but it's called Finding My Muse. And Annie makes an appearance in this book, who's in that very first book. And this is one of my favorite books. Sue doesn't like it. My wife doesn't like it as much, but I like that book a lot because it's the very first book I actually wrote in that series, but now it's really number 5 in the series. So, but anyway, those books are all fun. There's something in them for everybody. But if you want a mind trip, any of them, pick up any of them.
And we can get them through Amazon?
Yes, D.H. Parsons, Amazon.com. That's where they all are. And just look up my name and they'll all pop up. But the one you really, if you want to, the funniest one, the fun one, is the 1967 Summer of Love one in San Francisco.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to start picking them up one by one because I want your whole collection.
Well, why don't I send it to you?
No.
No, I kind of
No. I would rather buy them and support your work. And to me, that's very important. I don't need them as a gift, but I do appreciate it. I really do.
Okay. I'll dedicate my next book to you. Can I just say something real quick? Because I know you're short of time here. This guy right here, this Bobby Gallo, is one heck of a writer himself. His 2 books are and I'm not saying this out of my head just to hear myself talk. They are the best paranormal books I have ever read, and I've read hundreds of them. In the Bliss-Parsons Institute, which I started many years ago, we've studied this. We're writing our own books on it. We're writing all kinds we've done experiments and everything. You'll find those in that other book I'm writing. But this guy, I would go to him number 1 before anybody else. And I don't care you're talking about Taps or Ghost Adventures, any of these guys. This is the real thing. They're honest. Yeah, this is the main thing I like about them. They're honest. A lot of these other people are not honest. And I know some of you already figured that out. But this guy is honest. His family is honest. They make this incredible. It's an adventure watching them. Every show is extremely delightful. And they're very good at what they do. So if you want something good, read their books. Read their books before you read my books.
No, I'm humbled. I really am. I have no words for everything you just said, but thank you. Thank you. I think that's all I can say. And EB said something really nice in the chat. She said, God bless you, Bobby, and absolutely God bless you, D.H. Parsons. Your work is blessed in God and hugely necessary in these end times for this world, which is also the eternity of God's kingdom. Wow, what a nice thing for someone to say.
I happen to know who that is. She is a Christian evangelist.
Wonderful.
She is not talking out of her head either.
Oh, can you please share this with your fundamentalist friends, because we need more communication with them, because a lot of them, I'm not even going to say most, but I'm going to say a good portion of them have the wrong idea of what we do and what we're about. And if people like EB can be that bridge, and I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much, EB.
If you ever do a session on this, the church and everything, you might want to have the both of us together. She's written the book too.
Oh, I want to know what it is. Okay. You know what? Let's save that for a future show. We could definitely do this again. I could talk to you all day.
I know. I could talk to you all day. Especially if you had some Italian food to eat at the end.
Oh,
but you're 1,000 miles away, I think.
I know. What state are you in?
This is Missouri.
Oh, you're in Missouri. Guess what? My wife goes to Springfield, Missouri on business trip. She was just there last week.
Oh, I'll be darned. Well, we're up a bit in Columbia. It's a couple hundred miles up there. So,
cool.
But I'll tell her to wave, and I'll probably see it.
Okay. I will. Well, she's definitely going to watch this tonight for sure.
Your wife is wonderful. Your kids are wonderful kids. They're all grown now.
I know.
I watched them when they were kids and little when they started, you know. At least
my webcam is flashing, so we're going to end this at an hour. DH, thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Really, really appreciate it. And we'll have you back. Ladies and gentlemen, DH Parsons.
Thank you.
He was great, wasn't he? He was great.
They're all saying
right.
Yes. Look at that.
We'll see everybody later.